Casual Wednesday on this Zoo Adventures Wednesday.
Yay!
Probably should get back into... Okay. All right. Here we go. Zoo Adventures today. Steve's in front of the camera. Who's behind the camera today?
Megan!
It's good to see you today, Megan.
You're welcome.
We are here all about my favorite animal. Top 3 anyway. Polar bears. International Polar Bear Day is coming up. What a better way to celebrate. I believe Keeper Peppo is waiting for us. So we're going to go down there and try to find Nicole and chat with her a little bit. I bet she talks about this, our bears, and climate change. And we're lucky. Hey, look at this. We have Nicole's out with Peyton already.
What?
Yep. How lucky are we? How cool is this? That cannon. Nicole, Keeper Peppo has a cannon for an arm.
Do that again. Do that again.
Watch this. She's got a cannon. Good form. Look at that.
Whoa. Sorry, Val. You don't agree.
Hey, Nicole, how are you?
Hey, guys.
Keeper Peppo, how are things?
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Good to hear.
Yeah. Always a good day with the Bears.
Well, how did you not have a good day with the Bears?
Exactly.
We figured it was time to highlight the bear. We haven't been to the Bears in a while, Nicole.
Oh, yeah?
We wanted to share the Bears with our digital friends. You know Zoo Adventures.
Let's
Say hi
do
to
it.
Zoo Adventures people.
Hi.
So this is cool. This is who?
This is Peyton.
Peyton.
This is our boy bear.
Peyton is a male.
Uh-huh.
He's a big boy.
He is.
How big is he?
Right about now, he's around 1,000 pounds.
Why do you say right about now?
Because they're seasonal. Certain times of the year they'll
Oh.
drop weight, and then other times of the year they'll be heavier. So he tops out somewhere between like 12 and 1,300.
Jeez.
Yeah.
He puts on a Steve. That's big. And what are you doing now?
I am
He's tossing
tossing him
fish.
some herring chunks to fish.
Herring chunks.
Yep, chunks of fish.
It is a little early. We don't want to show everybody all the... It's kind of weird in that bucket.
Oh.
Surely. No, I see it. That was a good throw. It was a good throw.
I was worried about it bouncing off of stuff. You got it, though. Good job, buddy.
Is anybody else in here with him today?
No. So
No?
we do have a female. You guys, I'm sure, have seen her before.
No.
Anana. However, this time of year, they are still separate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why would you want to do that?
Because polar bears in the wild are solitary outside of breeding season. So
Oh.
we're gearing up to start breeding season for them, but there's a process of introductions that we have to go through.
And they're called howdies.
Howdies.
I love
yeah.
that. We do howdies with our animals. So let's talk a little bit about bears
Let's do it.
in general. People don't want to hear stuff about baseball. What made baseball be a conversation for another time?
Yep.
Bears. Carnivore?
Yes.
Would you classify them as a carnivore?
They're actually the most carnivorous out of all of your bear species.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Fish, seals. They'll even eat carrion. They'll eat dead stuff that washes on the shore sometimes.
Yep. Beluga, walrus.
Yeah.
But if they're gonna go after a walrus, they're pretty sizable, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot of resources on their part.
And you don't want to waste those resources when
Yeah.
you're
So
going
these
after
guys
them.
are stealth predators, to where you see some animals, they can outrun and
Right.
chase things down.
Yeah.
These guys, they wait, they sit, and they wait, and they're patient,
Yep.
and they wait for the seals to come up in the breathing holes. So
That's
and
right.
it's anything that they can do to conserve energy and conserve resources out in the harsh Arctic environment.
Love that. And they're very well equipped to deal with that harsh environment.
Yes, they are
Very, very
perfectly
well put.
adapted to live where they live.
Hold them up.
Hold the Muppet.
Good job.
Yay, Nicole with the Muppet.
I got the Muppet, yeah.
Peyton's like, are you gonna throw
It
that
looks-
to me?
This isn't for you, pal. You want to say anything? So
More
quiet.
fish.
I got no more. You're real cute.
Peyton's like,
Oh, you're gonna sit and stay with us anyway? What a
Thank
good
you,
boy.
Peyton. You're the best. All right. Keeper Peppo, you've been
Yes.
entrusted with the Muppet,
I've got the Muppet.
It's a big job.
but she can do it.
Okay.
Mainly because she's done it before. One of the things that we talk about with polar bears is they're very well equipped for the life in the Arctic. What sense really helps them survive in the Arctic? Eyesight? Hearing? Taste? Touch? Smell? Digital friends? What sense really helps them survive in the Arctic? Remember the Arctic. Huge, empty, voided space. Very colorless. A lot of whites, maybe some grays, some browns maybe. Not a whole lot of other wildlife out there. What's going to help them survive?
If you take a look at Peyton too,
Yeah.
notice some of his features. On his face, how big are his ears? They're pretty small in comparison to his body.
For a 1,000-pound animal.
Yeah. His eyes are pretty small for such a big animal.
Well said, yeah.
But take a look at that snout, his nose.
Nose.
So I just gave you a hint of what they rely on.
I think you went right past hint to the answer.
I mean, maybe.
You did good. You did good.
Oh, look, he's friendly. Oh,
He's doing pretty good for us today, digital friend.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, no, I'm the best.
Look again at that snout. Look at that nose. That nasal cavity is really important to them.
and if you ever come to the zoo and get the chance to watch our bears, you'll see them just sniffing around, checking out the air, and seeing what's going on out here.
Yeah.
Good boy.
They can definitely tell what you've worn as a perfume, as a cologne, as a deodorant.
What you had for breakfast.
Or that you didn't. But here is that snout. Here is that amazing nasal cavity. It said, that's hard to test. It said they can smell a seal 10, 15, 20 miles away.
What?
Right? Now, seals aren't on the surface very often. That's perfect conditions. They're under the ice a lot of times.
They're sneaky.
Length of a football field, a foot under the ice, they can smell it.
Through the ice?
Through a foot of ice. And we know that because we'll see them punching through the ice. We know they've had to smell it. You can't see it. You've seen polar bears punching through the ice.
Wow.
To get to the seal, or the seal pups quite often in a situation like that.
Yep.
Wow.
Right? All of that in here. Is this important for breeding season?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mentioned that polar bears are solitary outside of breeding season. So what starts to happen as the males and females are getting closer to that time of year, the males will start tracking the female. And their sense of smell is so good that he can track a female essentially walking in her same footsteps.
Really?
For miles and miles and miles without ever seeing her, just by the smell that she's leaving from her feet.
From her feet?
Yes. So he can smell those hormones and everything, all the the good smells from the ladies.
Right,
very far away, and track her for a very long time.
So that's what he's doing. He's tracking. He's actually using that sniffer with the tracks.
Yep.
Because of what's being left behind the paws. That's
Absolutely.
amazing. So
it's amazing to think that they have so much scent and so much left just from their footprint and their tracks. I mean, that's just wow.
And it kind of has to be, right? Because again, there's nothing in the Arctic. There's no visual cues to look for. You might get some tracks. Okay, once in a while. Yeah, all right.
And also, I mean, I like to talk to people like, if you go out in the winter, like right now, would you consider your sense of smell very good?
No.
Your nose is running.
Yeah.
It's really cold outside. Like your sinuses hurt when you take a deep breath. These guys live in like negative temperatures. And that does not affect their sense of smell to where, we're inadequate in that area.
Really? It doesn't impact at all?
Nope.
Wow.
I wouldn't have thought about that. That is cool.
Yeah, it actually,
living where it is.
their nose being so long, actually, for us, we've got, short little stubby nose. When we take a deep breath of really cold air, it immediately hurts our sinuses.
Yeah, and you can feel it go
By
all the
the
way
time
down.
it gets to his sinuses, it's already warmed up because of the size of his nasal cavity. So that doesn't even affect him.
Think about that, digital friends? That's kind of cool.
Perfectly adapted.
Yep. What's he doing?
He is
Being cute.
sitting like a dog, is what it looks like.
He's being cute, Steve.
Yeah.
Look at this.
He's really good at that.
Look at
He's such a good boy.
I think he's pouting for more
Are
fish.
you pouting? It's like, I see my keeper, and she's not feeding me. So remember I told you spoiled.
You did say that.
Keep her with the bucket.
Bucket
Aw,
empty.
Sad day. I promise there's more food for you later.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Let me perk up a little bit then.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Is it good?
There's that snout going. Megan, you were mentioning that earlier.
Yeah.
People are out and about. The zoo is open, of course. People checking things out. So he's going to be checking visitors out, or guests out as well.
He also could be getting close, because if they're cooking cheeseburgers behind us. You smelling the cheeseburgers?
Me too, buddy. Me too.
You're so good.
Since you're staying with us, as we said, we're taping. If we're thinking, where are we going to cut? What are we going to do? How are we going to put this together? We do plan these in the last 15
to
minutes.
make sure everybody got to see the bear.
Right.
And so we didn't know how long Peyton would stay around.
So this has been awesome. So you mentioned earlier, and I love that you kind of started to get in there that we have solitary animals. We bring them together for breeding season. That's happening soon.
Yep.
So what's driving that in their wild space? Why are the males and females coming together at this time of year?
So, like I mentioned, they're solitary. The males and females will only interact
Right.
inside a short window of breeding season.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's just so that the males don't help raise the cubs. It is just for breeding, and then he moves on to go find other ladies that he could breed with,
Okay.
and create more cubs.
Gotcha.
So,
He looks like he's a little
oh,
embarrassed.
goodness.
Nah, don't talk about me and breeding.
Embarrassing. So
That's cute.
essentially, what's driving it is behavior.
Is
So
that-
we're,
is that
we're looking for specific
breeding
behaviors.
behavior? Okay.
Yeah.
And do
Yeah.
you look for those here
Yes.
to put them together?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there are well, okay, we'll put it into perspective
All right.
this way.
I love perspective.
There's a reason that the males and females aren't around each other for the vast majority of the year.
Because
It
you
is
said they're
because
not
the
breeding.
males, they're not yet outside of breeding
Yeah,
season.
why come together?
Sorry, buddy, I hate to say this, and don't take it personal, but
Yeah.
the males are terrifying in the wild.
Oh, really?
They're huge. They're huge and twice the size of the females.
They would prey on a female
They
sometime.
would, yes,
Really?
or her cubs.
He doesn't
So-
look
Wow.
harmful. He looks precious.
I always say that it's really unfair that the largest apex predator, like the largest land-based predator
Right.
in the world, is as cute as they are.
They are cute. Look at that. I mean, come on,
It's just-
digital
it's
friends.
so unfair.
Hearts.
Look at
Come
them.
on.
Ugh.
Like, loves.
Like, I know.
And beautiful. Don't talk
Yes,
about
but
it.
What do you
they're-
think, digital friends?
They're outside in the wild. The males are twice the size of the females, and if they happened on to a female
Sure.
outside of breeding season, could really hurt her.
Well, that
So,
makes sense. I mean, it
yeah.
makes sense. They are a survivor
Yes.
by definition, and that at that moment,
Yep.
that other polar bear, whatever
It's
it
competition.
is competition
Yeah,
and food
outside of breeding
and
season,
resources.
she is competition for food.
Yep, and can
Yep.
become so.
Yep. So
Wow. Wow.
that's why, and it's funny. It's like it's the only time of year that the boys are expected to behave themselves and to court the ladies
Yeah.
and allow her to eat and protect her
Yeah.
and actually, for lack of a better way of describing it, he's supposed to flirt. He's
Right.
supposed to make her feel comfortable with him being around when every other time of the year he's a big
a
terrifying
challenge.
monster.
Right. And
So-
he looks it right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he'll track her, he'll follow her, he'll be with her, he'll kind of keep himself with her until that breeding
it's-
moment.
What the technical term for it is called guarding. So
Guarding.
he'll find a lady that hasn't quite come into cycling yet
Okay.
for breeding to be ready.
Yeah.
And he'll protect her from all the other male bears in the area to make sure that he has the opportunity to breed with her and nobody else does.
Right. Okay.
So
Love that. That is
Yep.
crazy. So breeding, let's just pick a date out of the air, March 1st. Let's say breeding happens March 1st and it works. We're going to have cubs in how long?
So bears are funny. So so breeding
Yes, they
season.
are.
Bears are
Yes.
funny.
Yes.
Why do you, okay, so explain funny bears.
So breeding season, yes, is it can happen as like early as March into April,
Okay.
sometimes May, but we won't see cubs until the end of November, and it's not because she's pregnant the entire
I say
time.
that'd be like humans. That'd
Yeah.
be about 8-9 months.
So bears have delayed implantation, which means they breed. They
Wait.
they bred on March 1st.
Delayed what?
Delayed implantation.
Delayed implantation.
Yes. So
Go for
they'll
it.
breed in March,
Okay. Yeah.
and that embryo
Yeah.
might, if it's going to implant, will not implant until October.
What does it do?
It just sits there.
It just kind of floats.
It sits there and waits for all the stars to align and the girl to have all the resources she needs for her body to indicate whether or not it is safe and she has everything she needs to grow that baby
So
and
come
raise
after
that baby.
resources.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it floats in there. So she's getting healthy.
Yes.
Maybe not the right way to say it,
Yep.
but she's getting fatter. She's getting healthy.
Yep.
She's finding food. She's out and about. She's surviving.
Yep.
All that going on, and then in that October-November time frame, it's like something clicks, something happens internally, chemically,
Yep.
whatever it is, and the female doesn't make a conscious decision. Doesn't say, "Okay, embryo, implant."
Yep.
but it happens because everything was in place. I love you said everything aligned properly. The
Yep.
resources were there. She is strong enough
Uh-huh.
to give birth.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
So that happens. Delayed
Yes.
implantation.
And then, we'll also talk comparatively about body size.
Yeah.
So the cubs, when they're, if everything, all the stars align, mom decides to den and she has her babies, are so small. The gestation, the growing part of things is only like 1 to 2 months.
Really?
So when they're born, they're about
That's
the
like-
size
that's
of like a
kangaroo.
water bottle. They're, they're really small. Their eyes are closed. They've got this like soft little like white fuzz on them. And at that point, when the babies are born at the end of November or sometimes into
Right.
December, they stay in the den with mom until the spring. So
Wow,
between
months.
that, but if you think about it, so they're born this tiny, and by the time
Still growing.
April comes, or they're coming out with their babies, those babies have to be big enough to be able to walk the harsh Arctic with mom.
And keep up with mom.
So mom's milk is very high in fat.
I
So those
bet.
babies grow real quick.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I love that you said how big they are, the size of a Coke bottle. Digital friends, put your fists together on top of each other. Put your fists together like that.
Okay, so let me just get this straight.
So have your fists together on top of each other. That's how big?
Yeah.
Small? A polar bear cub is. And you're not going to see anything.
Wow.
No, it's actually there is no such thing as a polar bear pregnancy test. We've been trying.
Wow.
So we won't know whether or not Anana is pregnant until babies are on the ground.
No kidding.
Yep. Because she could even, we mentioned talking about resources. They could have all the resources they need and still not
Right,
conceive.
yeah. Yeah.
Because, it's same thing for us. It's complicated in that same way. There
It
is no
doesn't work.
guarantees.
Stars don't know.
And they
Yeah.
will, they could go through something called like a false pregnancy, to where she'll do everything that she's expected to do as a lady polar bear going into denning. She'll sleep more and she'll be inside her den
Yep.
and show all of those behaviors, and still there be nothing. It's just hormones and seasonal and what her body's telling her to do.
No kidding.
Yep. So she's still preparing for that, even though there may or may not be cubs. So really, it's kind of a guessing game. All we can do is set them up for success and try and get those stars to align and hope for the best.
I love it. Were you going to say, Megan? I think I cut you off there a second ago.
No, I was just saying that this cuteness right here.
Yeah.
Like, he was even cuter.
He was the size of a water bottle when he was born.
Oh my
Or
goodness.
a Coke bottle, we'll say.
That's crazy.
It
Yeah.
was even tiny and so cute. Oh my
Yep.
goodness.
He was like, I'm pretty cute now, though. Yeah.
That is so neat. So what would be... So let's spin this a little bit back to the resources. What does she need for her to be healthy enough to give birth?
Well, so right around the time that breeding season happens.
Yeah.
So say if we're talking about an area like the Hudson Bay that has seasonal
Right.
sea ice, which means that the sea ice forms a certain time of year and actually melts away.
Yep.
So the bears have a limited amount of time to be able to hunt seals and put on all of that weight leading up to denning season for the females.
Okay.
So she has to be able to get enough food.
Yeah.
And conserve enough of her resources where she can put a nice fat layer on
Mm-hmm.
going into her denning period.
That's what she's going to live on.
That's what, because they don't eat, they don't urinate, they
Wow.
don't poop in the den. They just sit there and they grow the babies.
That's it. That's the job.
That's it.
For
That's
the
their
season.
job. So they have to be able to survive off of the fat resources that
Yep.
they've put on during this time period.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So they've got to be able to find the food. They've got to be able to find the denning site. They've got to be
Yep.
able to find all of that.
Yep.
I'm going to imagine that that's a little bit more difficult these days.
Yeah.
So we have some challenges that are going on.
Yep.
And the science tells us what's happening.
Mhm.
Nicole and I were very lucky, and a few other folks at the North Carolina Zoo. We were very, very lucky to be part of Polar Bear International's leadership camps. And there's all kinds of names we've gone over lately. I think it's called now the Climate Alliance. We are an Arctic Ambassador Center here at the North Carolina Zoo, kind of through Polar Bears International, PBI. If you check them out, they're an amazing organization, especially when it comes to polar bears. You and I went different, a few years apart. We got to go up. We got to meet polar bear scientists. We got to meet some climate scientists. Got to see polar bears in the wild. Amazing. And then all the other wildlife. So we saw the space. We saw the habitat. We saw the wildlife, saw the animals. And then we learned from the climate scientists, and we continue to learn today, that this climate change is a big deal.
It is.
And what we've uncovered through, and it's not, this didn't happen in the last 10 years. This is decades of science that have gone on, is that as we continue to burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas to really energize our lives, and we have to have that right now. We had to have it for a long time. But as we continue to do it, we're producing this excess amount of carbon dioxide, this rampant level, too much in the atmosphere. The numbers have gone from the mid to upper 280s parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to well over 400 parts per million. Right? So you haven't doubled, but you're getting up there. You're putting that much more CO2 in the atmosphere. And as that CO2 is in the atmosphere, what it's doing is it's kind of acting like a heat-trapping blanket. When you use a blanket in the wintertime, it's not trapping the house's energy, it's trapping your heat close to you. That's what a blanket does.
That's why it's warmer when the dog snuggles under the blanket with me, because I have more body heat, right?
And it's trapping more of that heat next to you. And as more of the sun's energy that's coming down is reflected back, as more as the Earth's heat is being trapped, it can't escape. The Earth has to get warmer. Because there's too much of that heat-trapping carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. There are other greenhouse gases that are out there, and greenhouse gases are good. People don't realize that. The greenhouse gases are great.
That's what makes our climate livable.
Exactly. I love that. Livable. And that's truly what it is.
Yeah.
Take the temperature today, wherever you are. Take that temperature. Throw it in the comment box if you so choose. Take that temperature. Remove the greenhouse gases. Temperature falls 50 degrees. Today at North Carolina Zoo, the temperature would be 0. It's around, probably not now. It's about 40, isn't it? Oh, breaking out the magic thing. So it'll be below 0 today. And again, this is mid-February as I'm taping it.
According to my phone, 30 degrees outside.
30 degrees. Take away that greenhouse gas. 20 below 0. So we know they're important. In a balanced ecosystem, in a balanced environment, greenhouse gases are doing a really important job. And as you said, made the planet livable. I love that. So that's a big deal. And as we're changing all these climate parameters, we don't know all the impacts that are going to happen. We're seeing changes in weather patterns.
We are.
We're seeing precipitation patterns change. We're seeing animal migrations change. We're seeing animals where they've never been before. Well, who cares? In Hawaii, the mosquito line is coming down. So you're seeing mosquitoes higher and higher and higher and higher in the mountains of Hawaii. Oh, well, so be it. Mosquitoes carry diseases. Birds that have never been exposed to the diseases the mosquitoes carrying are dying of those diseases now. One example in one habitat.
Steve, isn't there somebody who's been migrating up this way?
Into our world?
Yeah, into North Carolina?
Which one are you talking about? There's blue crab changes.
The rollies.
The rollies?
The scalies. Right?
The scalies and the rollies.
Scaly
Are
rollies.
are we talking about armadillos? Okay.
What are we talking about?
Rollies with scales.
Scaly rollies rolling the ball. Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Here we're seeing
I am.
we're seeing those changes. Armadillos are in places they've never been before. Plant changes are happening all over the place. So there's a lot of changes that are going on. Documentable changes. And we know the science works. We know that if there's excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it traps more heat. That can be proven and has been in the United States, in France,
Good
in
boy.
Pakistan, in Russia, in China, in Japan, in Liechtenstein, in Luxembourg. The science works everywhere.
Climate change is a global issue.
What?
So every single
Bing,
part of the planet
bing,
is
bing.
experiencing some sort
Right?
of effects from it.
Yes.
And what's wonderful about polar bears is that they are what we call indicator species.
Right.
So where they live, a lot of the research that places like Polar Bears International are doing are because some of the first observable effects of climate change are happening in their environment, in the Arctic.
Yep.
So we can see the bears in the wild having this humongous change from what they've been used to
Right.
and what they've adapted to in a very short period of time.
Yes.
When I was in Churchill, we ended up talking to one of the Parks Canada folks,
Yep.
and they were explaining to us that it used to be that the sea ice out on the Hudson Bay would be formed and the bears would be out on the sea ice hunting by the first week of October. Well, now if you look at it, there's many years that the sea ice isn't forming until late December into January. And I mentioned that the polar bears there, they need the time to go out and hunt the seals. So they're shortening their period of time that they get to hunt, and they're not used to it. They can't adapt fast enough for that. So that's where you're starting to see really thin polar bears and low reproductive success and things like that. And then on top of it forming later, it's actually melting away earlier.
Sooner.
So it's that window is really short.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that's important to see, that we're seeing those changes in the Arctic because it's more susceptible to those changes.
Yep.
The Arctic doesn't like change. And whatever change that comes is essentially magnified in the far, far north. That on-land period is just, they don't need to be on land. They need to be on that sea ice. Sea ice, I think you're alluding, is ephemeral. It comes and it goes. And if there's less time for it to form or go away, less time for them to be on it. It's your dirt. Sea ice is their dirt,
I mean, if our dirt just went out from under us,
right?
Yep.
And I think that's hard for people. That sea ice is their land that they hunt from. It's their platform for survival. And if it's going away,
Well, and it's unique that if we talk about the population that's specifically at the Hudson Bay, that is a seasonal sea ice. There are different
Right.
types of ice formation. There are some certain populations of polar bears where their ice stays around all year long.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to be able to focus on the population in the Hudson Bay because it's seasonal sea ice, and you can see dramatic changes
Yeah.
of how large the sea ice platform was and how much it's shrunk over the years, how late it's forming compared to how early it used to form previously. Forgot where I was going with
no. I think what you were saying a moment ago about those resources, it's vital to be able to come back to that and say, look, they just need that.
Yeah.
It needs to be cold. They need it to be forever. They need it to be there when they've expected to. You mentioned they're adaptable, but only to a point. You can't be adaptable in one generation.
Yeah.
I can't pass along those genes in one generation. Oh, they'll just start eating fish. They'll just start eating this or that. Well, they can't. That's
They
not
gotta
what
get
they're built.
faster.
Well,
Right.
and you asked about whether or not polar bears are carnivores. Yes, they're carnivores, but I'm gonna give you a bigger word or a fancier word
Oh,
that
love
probably
it.
people don't hear often.
Yes.
They're lipivores. So they need that seal blubber.
Lipivores.
They can opportunistically
Lipids.
eat other things, especially if, again, we're going back to that population in the Hudson Bay. There
Right.
are times of the year that they're landlocked. They're on the land. There is no
Yep.
sea ice. And during that time, they're not eating. They're fasting. They're eating things like kelp. They're finding bird eggs.
Right.
They're finding, random berries and things like
Which
that.
is natural.
Which is natural. It is. But they really need the blubber.
Lipivores.
what they- yes.
I love that. Lipids. You guys
Yes.
know lipids as fats.
Yeah.
You know lipid is a fat. So
they
that's cool. I
cannot
love that word.
survive
Without
on
that.
land-based foods.
So we understand that this climate change is going on. We understand that this is happening. The science is there. Is there hope?
Of course there's hope.
I agree.
Of course there's
I
hope.
think there is. I think that's something that we're not hearing as much.
Yes.
We're seeing that people are making changes. Individuals are making changes, which is awesome. We're hoping to get to a point where businesses are making changes, and we're seeing many businesses do that. Now it's a governmental change we need to see
Yes.
kind of happening.
Yes.
But on that community level, let's talk about some things that our digital friends can get behind, that can do. Obviously, you could write your senators, you could write your politicians, you could get there and do that. A lot of people aren't into that. They're not going to get in front of a grand group and say, this is what we should do. There's actions that we can take.
Yeah, hold your leadership accountable and vote for people that have these values for the environment in it. And even if you, like Steve said, write letters about what you would like to see. There's no harm in that. You're standing up for things that are important to you. The environment should be important.
Yeah, without the environment, nothing's going to happen. Some actions that you could take. If we're trying to reduce some of that CO2 that's in the atmosphere already, 2 things we can do. We can either stop producing it. There's some things we can do along those lines, or we can take it out of the atmosphere. What's something we can do to take it out of the atmosphere, digital friends? This is not a trick question. A lot of you do it already. I've seen pictures of yards already that you all have done this to.
Oh, green practices.
Gardening.
Yep. Gardening. Plant those gardens. Plant those trees. Set aside some of your yard for the wildlife, to be able to plant more, to plant something in there. And those green trees, those green plants are absorbing that carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Maybe do a community garden. Encourage your city to do that. What a big difference that might make.
As an Arctic Ambassador Center,
yep.
Actually, the North Carolina Zoo, our team here,
this is cool.
Plants a bunch of trees. We do a tree planting at least once a year.
Yep.
And for that reason, it is in hopes of planting new growth trees that absorb naturally CO2 from the atmosphere that help us mitigate those effects.
And that new growth they're doing it even better than the old growth tree. So it's even better to plant the new trees that are out and about working on that. So that's something to really do. Carpooling. Just simple things. Taking that public transit when you can, if it's available to you. I know it's not available everywhere. Asheboro doesn't have it. But jump on a bike, carpool, get to work differently if you can do those kind of actions. Something good. But remember, my challenge to you all is to do that project and then think bigger. Get bigger. I can turn off all the lights in my room. Cool. And do that. My family can turn off that's even better. My neighborhood can get involved in doing that. Even better. My church, my gym, my place of business can get behind some of these green practices. And when we're talking green practice, we're talking about getting rid of the carbon dioxide, recycling, all that's really important. That's not going to help the climate change instance as much as some of those other more direct actions we can do to absorb that carbon dioxide or limit the production of it in general. No, we're not passionate about this here at North Carolina Zoo. We are really into this, and it's important because we don't need those kind of changes that we can work on happening. They need it cold.
Very famous saying.
Let's go.
Okay.
Very famous saying.
Yes.
Nicole Peppo.
Not from me.
Keeper Nicole.
Even something simple that our school kids will understand.
Okay.
Everybody has heard the phrase reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yes.
There is a very big reason that the word reduce comes first.
Mm.
Okay, so recycling is great, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a drop in the bucket. What we should be doing is reducing the amount of resources that we're requiring.
Love that.
If we can reuse things so that we're still reducing, we're not producing new items and putting out more, greenhouse gases by the production of new things.
Yep.
And then recycling if we can't reduce or reuse.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yep.
I love that point.
And then also think about it from an economic standpoint. When things are needing less resources, you're saving money. If you're using less gas, you're lining your pockets. Yeah, if you're turning down the thermostat in your home during the winter, you're saving money on having to produce, or to pay for your electric bill.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Always good to come back to that.
Yeah.
That's a good
pick
saying.
your reason. I mean, the big reason should be, be kind to the environment, but then also be kind to your wallet.
Yep. I have another quote I heard once to kind of wrap this up was one Earth, one experiment. We have one place that we know for sure has life.
Yep. Don't blow it up.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's be careful with that. Nicole, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure chatting with you about polar bears, about Peyton and Anana, and climate change in general, and earth sciences. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for stopping by.
That's been great.
You know me, I'm always passionate about talking about things.
And we're happy to have you on the team, for sure. Beautiful friends, thank you so much for tuning in and watching today. That's your Zoo Adventures on this wonderful Wednesday. Your team today, Steve was in front of the camera. He was talking with Keeper Peppo for a while. Peyton made an appearance. Who was behind the camera today?
Megan.
Awesome. Always glad to have Megan. Everybody, hope to see you again soon. Stay safe. Bye, y'all.